My cousin Jessica stole my entire life, and I didn't find out until she was living better than me with my own stolen identity. What happened at our family reunion last month will haunt me forever, but it also saved my future. This is that story. I'm sitting here 3 weeks later, still processing everything that went down. My hands are shaking as I tell you this because, honestly, I never thought family could do something this twisted. But here we are. Let me start from the beginning because the beginning is where all the red flags were that I completely missed. 2 months ago, I was Emma Richardson, 34, living in suburban Phoenix, working as a marketing coordinator for a mid-sized tech company. Normal life, right? I had my little townhouse, my Honda Civic that I'd been paying off for 3 years, and what I thought was a decent credit score. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable.
God, I was so naive.
The first weird thing happened when I tried to refinance my mortgage. You know how that goes, right? Interest rates had dropped, and I figured I could save a couple $100 a month. Simple stuff. I walked into First National Bank on a Tuesday morning, feeling pretty confident. I'd done my homework, knew my credit score was around 720, had all my paperwork organized in one of those neat little folders. The loan officer, this guy named Dave with a perfectly trimmed beard and a tie that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, pulls up my credit report. His face. I'll never forget his face. It went from professional smile to confusion to something that looked almost like disgust. "Ma'am," he says, sliding the papers across his desk like they might contaminate him, "there seems to be some irregularities on your credit report." Irregularities. What a polite way to say my financial life had been obliterated. Apparently, Emma Richardson, me, had taken out 17 different loans in the past 2 years. Car loans, personal loans, even a business loan for some consulting company I'd never heard of. There were credit cards maxed out at stores I'd never shopped at in cities I'd never been to. The total damage? Over $340,000 in debt. I stared at those numbers until they blurred. This has to be a mistake. I kept saying, "This has to be a mistake." But Dave's expression told me it wasn't. That's when the panic started. You know that feeling when your stomach drops and your chest gets tight and suddenly you can't breathe properly? That's what hit me in that pristine bank office with its fake plants and motivational posters about achieving your dreams. I spent the next 3 days on the phone with credit bureaus, banks, collection agencies. Same story everywhere. Emma Richardson of Phoenix, Arizona, Social Security number ending in those 4 digits I'd memorized since I was 16, had been very, very busy destroying her financial future. The weird part? Half the transactions were local. Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tempe. Someone was using my identity right here in my own backyard, and they knew enough details about my life to pass credit checks that should have been impossible to fake. I filed police reports. I contacted the fraud departments. I did everything you're supposed to do. But here's what they don't tell you about identity theft. It's not like the movies. There's no dramatic investigation, no fingerprints lifted from forged documents. It's just you, drowning in paperwork, trying to prove you didn't steal from yourself. The detective assigned to my case, Officer Martinez, was sympathetic but honest. "Ma'am, most of these cases, they're hard to solve. Usually it's someone who got your information online, operates out of state, covers their tracks well. Unless we get lucky and catch them in the act, or unless you have some idea who might have access to your personal information." That's when it hit me. Access to my personal information. See, I'm one of those people who actually keeps important documents organized. I have a fireproof safe in my bedroom closet with my birth certificate, social security card, passport, all that stuff. But I'm also the type who helps family members when they need documents for various things. Job applications, apartment rentals, you know how it is. And I started thinking about who in my family had been asking for help with paperwork over the past couple of years. My cousin Jessica. Jessica Martinez. Well, she went back to using her maiden name Lopez after her divorce 3 years ago. Jessica Lopez. We'd grown up together, more like sisters than cousins. Her mom, my Aunt Carmen, and my mom were best friends. We'd spent every summer together as kids, shared secrets, braided each other's hair, promised we'd be each other's maid of honor someday. Jessica was always the prettier one, the more outgoing one. In high school, she was homecoming queen while I was in the debate club. She married her high school sweetheart right after graduation, had two beautiful kids, lived in this perfect little house with a white picket fence. The American dream, right? But then her husband left. Just left. One day she was posting happy family photos on Facebook. The next day she was a single mom with two kids under 10, no job experience, and a mortgage she couldn't afford. I helped her. Of course, I helped her. She was family. When she needed references for job applications, I let her use me. When she needed someone to co-sign for a smaller apartment, I was there. When she said she was trying to rebuild her credit and needed to see what a good credit report looked like for comparison, I showed her mine. I even let her stay at my place for 2 weeks when she was between apartments. She slept in my guest room, used my computer, had access to my mail, my personal space, everything. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I actually had to pull over while driving home from work because my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't steer straight. But I couldn't just accuse her. This was Jessica. This was my cousin, my childhood best friend, the person who held my hair back when I got food poisoning on that trip to San Diego when we were 22. There had to be another explanation. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I started investigating quietly. First, I drove by her current apartment. The address I had for her was in a complex on the south side of town, kind of rundown, exactly where you'd expect a struggling single mom to live. But when I got there, the apartment was empty. Had been empty for months, according to the neighbor I chatted with. Oh, the Lopez family? Yeah, they moved out. Must have been January? Maybe February? Left in the middle of the night, actually. Kind of weird. January was right around when the first fraudulent loan showed up on my credit report. I started digging deeper. Social media, public records, anything I could find. And slowly, piece by piece, a picture started forming that made me feel sick. Jessica wasn't struggling. Jessica was thriving. Her Instagram, which I'd somehow missed for months, showed a completely different life. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Vegas and San Diego. Her kids were in a private school now, wearing uniforms that cost more than my monthly car payment. She was living in a beautiful apartment in North Scottsdale, one of those complexes with granite countertops and resort-style pools. And she was posting about her marketing consulting business that was absolutely booming. The same marketing consulting business that, according to my credit report, had taken out a $45,000 business loan in my name. I screenshotted everything. Every post, every check-in, every photo. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone steady. But I still needed proof. Real proof. Because even with all this evidence, part of me was hoping I was wrong. Part of me was hoping there was some other explanation, some misunderstanding that could be cleared up with a conversation. That's when I remembered the family reunion. Every year, my mom's side of the family gets together for a big reunion. Usually it's at my Uncle Roberto's house in Tucson, but this year Aunt Carmen, Jessica's mom, had volunteered to host it at her new place in Scottsdale. The reunion was scheduled for the third Saturday in June. I almost didn't go. I mean, how do you sit across from someone at a picnic table and make small talk when you suspect they've stolen your entire identity? But I went, and I went prepared. I brought copies of everything. Every fraudulent loan application, every fake credit card, every piece of evidence I'd collected. I also brought my laptop because I had a plan. The reunion was exactly what you'd expect. Folding tables covered in my grandmother's good tablecloths, paper plates piled high with my aunt's famous tamales, kids running around with juice boxes, adults catching up on a year's worth of family gossip. Jessica looked amazing. I mean, she looked like a completely different person from the struggling single mom who'd crashed on my couch 18 months earlier. Her hair was professionally styled. She was wearing this gorgeous sundress that probably cost more than my rent, and she had this confidence, this glow that comes from not worrying about money. She hugged me when I arrived, and I swear I could smell expensive perfume. Not drugstore stuff. The real deal. Emma. Oh my God. You look great. How's work? How's the house? Are you dating anyone? The questions came rapid fire, like she was trying to fill the air with chatter, so I couldn't ask any questions back. But I played along. I smiled, I hugged back, I told her work was fine. The house was fine. My dating life was non-existent as usual. What about you? I asked, keeping my voice light. How's the consulting business going? Her face lit up. Oh my God, it's incredible. I can't believe how well it's taken off. I'm actually thinking about expanding, maybe hiring some employees. The demand is just crazy right now. That's amazing, I said, and I meant it. It was amazing. It was amazingly elaborate. I waited until after dinner, when the adults were starting to break off into smaller groups and the kids were occupied with a movie in the living room. Jessica was in the kitchen with a few of our aunts, washing dishes and gossiping about our cousin Miguel's new girlfriend. I approached casually, carrying my empty plate and wearing my best nothing to see here expression. Jess, can I talk to you for a second? Maybe outside. She looked up from the sink, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Fear? Guilt? It was gone so fast, I might have imagined it. Sure, Prima. What's up? We walked out to the back patio, where string lights cast everything in a warm, golden glow. It was beautiful, actually. The kind of setting where you'd expect to have a heart-to-heart conversation about relationships or career dreams. Not this. I sat down at one of the smaller tables, away from the main party. Jessica sat across from me, and I noticed her posture was different now. More guarded. So, I said, pulling out my phone, I've been having some weird financial issues lately. Oh no, she said, and her voice was perfect. Concerned, sympathetic, exactly what you'd expect from a caring cousin. What kind of issues? Identity theft, I said, watching her face carefully. Someone's been using my social security number, my name, my address. They've taken out hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans. Jessica's expression didn't change. That's terrible, Emma. Have you contacted the police? Oh yes, I said. I've contacted everyone. The police, the FBI, the credit bureaus. It's been educational. I swiped to the first screenshot on my phone. One of her Instagram posts from last month showing her at some fancy restaurant in Paradise Valley. The caption read, "Celebrating another successful month in the consulting world. #blessed, #entrepreneur, #living my best life." I turned the phone toward her. This is a nice picture. She glanced at it, and I saw her throat move as she swallowed. Thanks. It was a good day. I bet it was, I said. That restaurant looks expensive. Morton's, right? I looked it up. Dinner for two there runs about $200 easy. We were celebrating a big client contract. Must have been a really big contract, I said, swiping to the next screenshot. This one showed her kids at their private school, both of them in crisp uniforms, backpacks that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Jessica was starting to look uncomfortable. Emma, what is this about? I'm just wondering, I said, keeping my voice conversational, how someone goes from sleeping on my couch because they can't afford rent to living in a luxury apartment and sending their kids to private school, all in the span of 18 months. The silence stretched between us. In the background, I could hear laughter from inside the house, the sound of our family having a good time, completely unaware of the confrontation happening 20 feet away. I told you, Jessica said finally. The consulting business took off. Right, the consulting business. I pulled up another screenshot. The one that took out a $45,000 business loan using my social security number? This time, the change in her expression was unmistakable. The color drained from her face, and she actually leaned back in her chair like I'd physically struck her. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? I swiped to the next image. Because I have a loan application right here. Emma Richardson, my address, my social security number, but the contact phone number. Let me see, that's your phone number, isn't it, Jess? She stared at the screen, and I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how to explain this away. That must be a mistake, she said, but her voice had lost all its confidence. A mistake, I repeated. Just like the car loan for the BMW you've been posting pictures of? Just like the personal loans that paid for all those weekend trips to Vegas? Just like the credit cards that bought those designer clothes? I was scrolling through the evidence as I talked, showing her screenshot after screenshot of her own social media posts alongside the corresponding fraudulent accounts in my name. Emma, I can explain.
Please do, I said.
Because I've been trying to figure out how to explain this to myself for weeks now, and I keep coming back to the same conclusion. My cousin, my best friend, the person I trusted enough to let into my home, into my personal space, has been systematically destroying my financial life to fund her own. The tears started then. Not for me, from her. Big, dramatic tears that rolled down her cheeks and smudged her expensive makeup. You don't understand, she sobbed. I was desperate. The divorce left me with nothing. I had 2 kids to support, no job skills, no way to make the kind of money we needed to survive. So, you decided to steal mine? I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. It started small. Just 1 credit card, just to get us through until I could figure something out. But then the kids needed school supplies and clothes, and I couldn't let them suffer, because their father abandoned us. So you destroyed my credit instead. I was going to pay it back. The words came out in a rush. That's why I started the consulting business. I was going to make enough money to pay everything back, and you would never have to know. I stared at her. Jessica, you've stolen over $300,000 from me. Even if your business was legitimate, which it's not, how exactly were you planning to pay back that kind of money? She didn't have an answer for that. She just sat there crying, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The business is legitimate, she said finally. I really am doing marketing consulting. I have real clients, real contracts. Using my credentials, I said. Using my college degree, my work experience, my reputation. Even your business is built on identity theft. That's when I pulled out my laptop. What are you doing? She asked, alarmed. I'm going to show you something, I said, opening the computer and logging into my social media accounts. I've been documenting all of this. Every loan, every credit card, every piece of evidence. And I've been posting about it online. Her face went white. Emma, no. Please. Think about the kids. Think about our family. I thought about the kids, I said, pulling up my X account. That's why I'm giving you a chance to make this right before I go public with everything. I've been posting about the identity theft for weeks, but I'd been careful not to name names. Just general posts about the experience, the frustration, the process of trying to rebuild your credit after someone destroys it. But I'd been building an audience, and people were invested in the story. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to come with me to the police station tomorrow morning. You're going to confess to everything. You're going to provide documentation of every fraudulent account, every stolen dollar, every fake transaction. And you're going to work with me to make this right. Emma, please. Or, I continued, I'm going to post everything right now. All the evidence, all the screenshots, your full name, your address, your kid's school. I'm going to let the internet decide what should happen to someone who steals $300,000 from their own family. She was shaking now. You wouldn't do that to me. We're family. Family, I repeated.
Right.
Is that what you were thinking about when you were forging my signature on loan documents? Is that what you were thinking about when you were using my social security number to open credit cards in my name? Is that what you were thinking about when you let me believe I was going crazy, that somehow I'd forgotten taking out all these loans? The back door opened, and my mom poked her head out. Everything okay out here, girls? We're fine, Mom, I called back. Just catching up. Mom smiled and disappeared back inside, and I turned back to Jessica. You have 30 seconds to decide, I said, my finger hovering over the post button on my phone. Police station tomorrow morning, or I go public right now. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I'll go with you tomorrow. I nodded and closed my laptop.
Good. And Jessica?
If you try to run, if you try to hide, if you try to convince our family that I'm the bad guy here, I will destroy you. I will post every single piece of evidence I have, and I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. One more thing, I said, standing up. You're going to tell your kids the truth. Not today, not at the reunion, but soon. They deserve to know why their comfortable life is about to disappear. I walked back into the house, leaving her sitting alone on the patio. The rest of the evening was surreal. I made small talk with relatives, played with the kids, helped clean up, all while knowing that I'd just blown up my family's entire dynamic. But here's the thing. I felt good. For the first time in months, I felt like I had some control over my life again. The next morning, Jessica showed up at my house at 9 a.m. sharp. She looked like she hadn't slept, which she probably hadn't. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she was wearing old jeans and a t-shirt instead of her usual designer outfits. "I brought everything," she said, holding up a box. "All the paperwork, all the account information, everything." We drove to the police station in silence. I kept glancing at her, trying to reconcile this broken woman with the confident, successful person she'd been pretending to be for the past year and a half. At the station, Detective Martinez was waiting for us. I'd called ahead and explained the situation, and he'd agreed to take Jessica's confession. What followed was 3 hours of the most surreal conversation I've ever been part of. Jessica laid out the entire scheme, piece by piece. How she'd memorized my social security number years ago when I'd helped her with job applications. How she'd used my address and personal information to open the first credit card. How the success of that first fraud had emboldened her to go bigger and bigger. She'd been systematic about it. She'd researched credit requirements, figured out which banks were most likely to approve loans, even learned to forge my signature by practicing on scrap paper for hours. The business loan was the most elaborate part. She'd actually created a fake business plan, fake references, fake financial projections. She'd spent weeks preparing for the loan interview, memorizing details about my education and work experience so she could answer questions convincingly. The worst part, she told Detective Martinez, is that the business actually started working. I was good at marketing consulting. I had real clients, real results. But by then, I was in so deep that I couldn't stop using Emma's identity. The business credit was better than anything I could get on my own. Detective Martinez asked all the right questions. How much money total? Which banks? Which credit cards? How long had this been going on? Jessica answered everything, her voice getting smaller and smaller as the full scope of her crimes became clear. $347,000. That was the final number. Over 18 months, she'd stolen $347,000 from me. "Ms. Lopez," Detective Martinez said finally, "you understand that this is a felony?" "Multiple felonies, actually. Identity theft, fraud, forgery. You're looking at serious prison time." Jessica nodded, fresh tears starting to fall. "I understand. What about restitution?" I asked. "What about paying the money back?" "That's going to be complicated," the detective said. "A lot of the money has already been spent. The car, the apartment, the school tuition, the lifestyle expenses. We'll do our best to recover what we can, but..." He didn't need to finish. I knew what he was saying. Most of the money was gone, and I was going to be dealing with the financial consequences of Jessica's crimes for years to come. Jessica was arrested that day. I watched as they put her in handcuffs and led her away, and I felt empty. Not satisfied, not vindicated, just empty. The next few days were a blur. I had to contact all the banks and credit agencies again, this time with official police reports and arrest records. I had to change my social security number, which is a nightmare process that affects literally everything in your life. I had to notify my employer, my insurance companies, my mortgage company, everyone. But I also did something else. I went back to X and posted the whole story. I didn't include Jessica's name or personal details, but I told the entire story of discovering the identity theft, investigating it, confronting the perpetrator, and going to the police. I posted screenshots of the fraudulent accounts, the evidence I'd collected, the police reports. The response was incredible. Within 24 hours, the thread had been shared thousands of times. People were commenting with their own identity theft stories, offering advice, expressing outrage on my behalf. True crime podcasters were reaching out asking for interviews. Local news stations wanted to do stories about family identity theft. I became accidentally famous for being the victim of an elaborate crime, which is a weird kind of fame to have. But the attention also helped. A lawyer specializing in identity theft cases offered to represent me pro bono. A financial advisor reached out with strategies for rebuilding my credit. A nonprofit organization that helps identity theft victims connected me with resources I didn't even know existed. Most importantly, the story going viral meant that other people in similar situations saw it and realized they weren't alone. I got hundreds of messages from people who'd been victimized by family members, friends, romantic partners. People who'd been too ashamed or confused to report the crimes, who'd been convinced by their abusers that it was somehow their fault. Jessica was indicted 3 weeks later on 14 felony counts. Her lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't interested in going easy on her. The case was too high-profile, the dollar amount too large, the betrayal too calculated. I testified at her preliminary hearing. It was the first time I'd seen her since the day she was arrested, and she looked like a completely different person. Gone was the confident, well-dressed woman who'd been living my stolen life. In her place was someone who looked defeated, broken, years older than her actual age. She pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for a sentence of 5 to 10 years in state prison. She'll also be required to pay restitution, though we all know that's largely symbolic. You can't squeeze blood from a stone, and Jessica doesn't have $347,000 to give back. Her kids are living with her mother now, my Aunt Carmen. Carmen called me a few weeks after the sentencing, crying and apologizing, saying she had no idea what Jessica had been doing. I believe her. Carmen is a good person who raised what she thought was a good daughter. But the family dynamics are complicated now. Some relatives think I was too harsh, that I should have handled it privately instead of involving the police. Others think Jessica got what she deserved. Most of them just don't know what to think. I get it. It's hard to reconcile the Jessica they knew, the loving mother, the devoted daughter, the cousin who always remembered birthdays and brought the best dishes to family gatherings, with the Jessica who systematically stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from her own family. But here's what I've learned. People are capable of both great love and great betrayal, sometimes simultaneously. Jessica probably did love me in her way. But she loved her own comfort and her children's lifestyle more than she respected my trust or my financial security. As for me, I'm rebuilding. Slowly. My credit score is still a disaster, but it's improving month by month. I'm working with a credit repair company, disputing the fraudulent accounts one by one, providing documentation to prove I wasn't responsible for the debts. I've had to take out a personal loan to cover some of the immediate financial damage, and I'm probably going to lose my house. Even though I'm not legally responsible for Jessica's debts, the damage to my credit means I can't refinance the mortgage, and I can't afford the current payments on my salary. But I'm okay with that. It's just a house. I'd rather rent a small apartment and know that I'm building my life on a foundation of truth than live in a beautiful home built on lies and stolen money. The X thread that started all of this is still going viral periodically. Every few weeks, someone discovers it and shares it again, and I get a new wave of messages from people dealing with similar situations. I've started a blog about identity theft recovery, and I'm working with several organizations to raise awareness about family financial abuse. Because that's what this was really. Financial abuse. Jessica used her position as a trusted family member to systematically exploit and victimize me. The fact that she did it to fund a comfortable lifestyle rather than to feed a drug habit or gambling addiction doesn't make it any less abusive. I've also learned that family identity theft is way more common than most people realize. According to the Federal Trade Commission, about 25% of identity theft victims know their perpetrator personally. And family members are the most common perpetrators of identity theft against children and young adults. Jessica had access to my personal information because I trusted her. I gave her that access willingly because she was family, because I wanted to help her during a difficult time in her life. She exploited that trust in the most calculated way possible. Would I do anything differently if I could go back? I don't know. Maybe I would have been more careful about sharing personal information, even with family. Maybe I would have monitored my credit more closely. Maybe I would have recognized the red flags earlier. But honestly, I think I would have trusted her again. because that's who I am. I trust people until they give me a reason not to, and I especially trust family. That's not a weakness, even though it made me vulnerable to Jessica's crimes. The real tragedy here isn't just the money, though $347,000 is nothing to laugh about. The real tragedy is the destruction of trust, the realization that someone I loved was capable of such systematic deception and betrayal. I miss the Jessica I thought I knew. I miss having a cousin I could call when I was having a bad day, someone who knew all my childhood memories and could make me laugh until I cried. I miss the sense of security that came from believing my family would always have my back. But I don't miss living a lie. I don't miss being financially vulnerable because of someone else's crimes. I don't miss the constant anxiety of not understanding what was happening to my credit, my financial future, my life. 3 months ago, I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was losing my mind, forgetting major financial decisions, somehow becoming irresponsible without realizing it. The discovery that it was all Jessica's doing was devastating, but it was also a relief. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't irresponsible. I was a victim of an elaborate, long-term con job perpetrated by someone I trusted completely. And now I'm a survivor. I'm rebuilding my life, my credit, my sense of security. I'm sharing my story to help other people recognize the signs of family financial abuse. I'm working with organizations to raise awareness and provide resources for victims. Most importantly, I'm learning to trust my instincts again. Those red flags I dismissed, the inconsistencies in Jessica's story that I explained away, the gut feelings I ignored because I didn't want to believe someone I loved could hurt me so badly. I'm paying attention to those signals now. Jessica will be eligible for parole in 3 years. When that day comes, I'll be ready. I'll testify at her parole hearing, and I'll tell the board exactly what her crimes cost me, not just financially, but emotionally, psychologically, and socially. But I won't let her destroy my ability to trust, to love, to help other people when they need it. Because that would be letting her win, and she's taken enough from me already. The story isn't over. Identity theft recovery is a long process, and rebuilding trust after this kind of betrayal takes time. But I'm stronger now than I was 6 months ago. I'm more aware, more careful, but not more bitter. I refuse to let Jessica's betrayal turn me into someone I don't want to be. If you've listened to this whole story, thank you. If you're dealing with something similar, know that you're not alone, and it's not your fault. Family financial abuse is real, it's devastating, and it's not something you should have to handle by yourself. Trust your instincts. Document everything. And don't be afraid to ask for help, especially when the person hurting you is someone who's supposed to love you. Your story matters, and I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button if this helped you feel less alone.